The Netherlands is a low-lying country in the northwest of Europe, located at 54 degrees north. The coastline of the province of Zeeland is broken up by wide estuaries, such as the Eastern Scheldt, where the salt water and the ebb and flow of the tides have held sway for thousands of years. The motto, Luctor et emergo, I struggle and emerge, on the Zeeland coat of arms refers to the constant battle against the water that the Dutch people have fought with varying degrees of success throughout the ages. In order to protect the inhabitants of Zeeland, the mouth of the Eastern Scheldt estuary is to be closed off from the sea by a gigantic dam, which is being built at considerable financial sacrifice to the country. A storm surge barrier is to be built consisting of piers between which 70 steel gates will allow the seawater to flow in and out as usual. The intertidal zone is the biotope for many animals and plants. Innumerable crustaceans, worms and mollusks live in the shallows and under the sand. They provide food for the stately shell duck and many species of whiter. The shape of their bills enables them to catch and eat the food in this biotope. Brent geese move south to overwinter here. Oyster catchers stand in shallow pools on the landward side of the dike, waiting till the tide has gone down far enough for them to forage for food on the seaward side. The intertidal zone is to be found between the high water mark and the water level at low tide. The stones protecting the dike shelter many curious forms of life. The bladderwrack has air bladders on its fronds which enable them to float as soon as the incoming tide washes over them. Mussels, oysters, and barnacles can withstand exposure to the air for considerable periods. They close their shells or plates so tightly that they cannot become dehydrated. Man has also had to find ways of coping with the rise and fall of the tide. And here a pontoon jetty is used for mooring boats. When the barnacle reopens as the tide rises, it protrudes 6 pairs of thin, curved, bristly legs, which set up currents in the water and entrap the plankton. The bladderwrack is now upright, and what at first appeared to be a slimy mass of seaweed is transformed into a forest of waving green plants. The seabed just below the tidal zone contains a great variety of living creatures, such as mussels, oysters, barnacles, and periwinkles. A little deeper, we find plumose anemones, a foot high, hydroids, and countless other creatures. Many sea creatures scuttle about amongst the anemones, including the hermit crab, which protects its soft abdomen by living in an abandoned shell. Almost all the animals adhering to the surface of stones, etc., feed on minute plants and animals which they filter out of the water. The beautiful creatures attached to the mermaid's gloves are sea slugs, which feed on hydroids. The brittle star is much more agile than the common starfish. Fish of every shape and form live on or near the seabed. The flounder is camouflaged so that it is difficult to distinguish it from its surroundings. The hermit crab is one of the few creatures with housing problems. When it grows too large for its prefabricated home, it forages about in search of another and will sometimes try to oust the previous occupant. The long-legged spider crab has no such problem, and its only worry is to remain as inconspicuous as possible. The male crab grasps the female, sometimes for several days, until she molts, because only then can the eggs be fertilized. Nature has provided all creatures with exactly what they need to survive. The edible crab uses its vicious-looking claws in self-defense. The butterfish, or gunnel, lives on rocky shores where there's much weed, sheltering under this at low tide. It's easy to see that the pipefish is related to the seahorse. The dragonet is among the many creatures that hide in the sand, invisible to predators or other enemies. Spider crabs and sea spiders camouflage themselves by means of seaweeds, bryozoa, and other tiny creatures that attach themselves to their bodies and legs. Innumerable comb jellies appear in the eastern Scheldt in spring, to be followed later in the summer by the much larger jellyfish, known as the lion's mane. Its tentacles have become entangled in the sea anemones. In spite of their flower-like appearance, sea anemones are not plants, but carnivorous animals. The mouth can be clearly discerned in the center. Mussels filter the plankton from the water which they pump through their bodies. Crabs are omnivorous and grab anything that comes their way, such as jellyfish. Lobsters are a familiar sight in the eastern Scheldt. Older specimens can grow quite large and are often encrusted with barnacles and mussels. The lobster is very well able to defend itself. Even the threat of its formidable claws is usually enough. Eat or be eaten. Catch or be caught. There is even a species of soft coral to be found in the eastern Scheldt, dead man's fingers. The constant ebb and flow of the tide causes currents of more than 3 meters a second in many places. So the creatures that live on the seabed have to fasten themselves firmly to rocks or other solid matter. The many large boulders at the foot of the dikes are highly suitable for this purpose. We therefore find organisms of this type, such as oysters, only in certain places. Bullheads have to seek shelter if the current gets too strong, as do the gunnels. Cuttlefish, which are classed with the octopuses, come into the eastern Scheldt in large numbers in spring to spawn. Octopuses, like other fish, are not so dependent on the current. Many species of fish migrate in and out of the eastern Scheldt according to the season. Some spawn there, such as the anchovy. Shoals of fish consisting of herring, sprat, and anchovy are pursued by predators. Mackerel and the unrelated horse mackerel hunt together. And in their turn are eaten by man. The eastern Skeld and the surrounding lowlands together form a unique environment where tens of thousands of birds find winter shelter. But the safety of the inhabitants of Zeeland must come first, and huge barrier dams have already been built across the other estuaries. The eastern Skeld is to remain open to the sea. A pier dam is being built to check the fury of wind and waves. The tidal movement will continue, and the water will remain salt. The safety of Zeeland is assured for all time. The natural environment is preserved for all time.